So I'm shocked because we don't give these kids enough credit when you would think about taking them to a winery. How is that such a good dual activity for two parents over here who like wine and kids who are way too small to drink wine? Give me the background on that.
So I will say that was definitely more of a parent favorite,
right?
From what they took away from it. But there were food pairings with the wine, so the kids got to try food, so they enjoyed eating, which is always a big hit. Also, while we were doing some of the tastings, there were activities around something similar to bocce ball and horseshoes and things of that nature. So they were right beside of us in this little courtyard area, playing, having fun, while we were tasting the different wines.
Right. And you know what? It's that culture is not indifferent to going to a brewery. You know what I mean?
Correct,
like, and
yes.
you bring your kids and your dogs, and it's like I feel like we're kind of transitioning to that is more relevant than it used to be.
Yes, yes.
So they kind of just jumped right into playing when the kids were over there enjoying some nice wine.
Well, and the thing for the kids, the connection for them was at most of our meals, wine was on the table. It wasn't something that you ordered like you do here. Right. I want a glass of wine, or it was already there. So you could tell that was a cultural thing, that wine pairings with food are commonplace.
Did you get any? Did a child ever make a comment on that observation? Like, hey, I noticed there's wine on every single table all the time.
They didn't point it out. So either they just accepted it for what it was, or they asked later when they were with their parents. But we never heard feedback as far as them having a shocked moment for that.
I don't have kids, but I remember when I was young and I had an experience like that. And it just stayed with me for so long. The younger I was, I can barely remember what I did like a month ago. But I'm really interested to kind of see what the post delayed benefits are for these students as they continue to gradually and accept cultural things like having wine with dinner. Is the Italians treat wine as food,
right?
To digest. It's a part of their food. It's not a drink. It's very much a part of the meal.
Correct. Well, and the other difference they notice with meals in Italy is they don't eat until 7, 8 o'clock at night. Whereas we might be hungry at 5 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
We had a huge discussion with our tour guide. Right. We had eat all the time. We had a huge discussion with him about eating and timing of eating. And he looked at us like we were crazy when we talked about coming home and trying to eat and then running around and doing all of these other things. And he said, why don't you do all of those other things and then come home and cook and settle in for the evening? As if we're like, wow, we don't do that here. We just don't do that. So for the kids, they were just floored, but they fell right into that pattern and that timing of food like it was second nature.
That's amazing because the Italians actually, on average, I'm sure you know this, live longer than anyone else in the world.
No, I did not know
85
that.
average. So something to be said for savoring, slowing down, enjoying a meal with family in a communal kind of atmosphere. Right. We're just go. But those are the differences, right? Those are the differences that they'll start to see over time.
Yes.
I'm curious, how did they adjust to jet lag?
Yes. So when we first got to Italy, we had flown overnight. They slept better on the plane because they fit better in the seats, and they have parents to sleep on. So I can say
because the seats are made for kids.
Correct, and they can lay out across, parents' laps, whereas we weren't so lucky as the adults. So they did well because they got. I think they got a fair amount of sleep on the flight over. When we got there, most of the families heeded the advice of trying to stay awake as long as you can before you go to bed. Try not to take a nap. We did have a family that did take a nap. They had a harder time getting up for dinner, but it worked. Other than that, they were good to go. As far as jet lag going that way, coming back, it was a longer. It was a longer feeling coming back. It seemed so kids weren't quite as peppy. But we didn't have any meltdowns whatsoever.
The excitement of going, probably just the adrenaline kicked in. And what was the cell phone usage for the students, for the ones that did have it, if they had it?
So the students didn't have cell phones.
Fantastic.
Any cell phones that were there. So one of the benefits of doing family travel is the parents made those decisions. We didn't make them for anyone. So if the parents wanted the kids to have a phone, then the parents gave the kids a phone to use. But the prices of cell phone usage in another country kind of helped limit the usage of technology.
Well, it's it's like it's shifting to the parents' responsibility at that point. And I'm really interested in this, and maybe ask a few little harder questions.
Okay.
So I'll throw you a softball. When parents have that much control, do they ever try to throw their control around in that they come to you and they say, hey, we want you to do this, or we would prefer this, or this isn't what I expected, because you don't deal with that with students.
Right.
What experience have you had with a go-with-the-flow mentality?
So I think all of that goes towards preparation for the experience and setting up what the expectations are, and also setting up the fact that it is travel. Things can go wrong. Things may go wrong. Things do go wrong. And just setting that tone up straight away, that when something happens, we will take care of it right away. We have a procedure, we have a plan, we will take care of it, but just know that we are traveling and it may happen, and we're going to make the best of every situation that we're in. So I think setting that up before you leave is crucial.
Of course.
On our experience, because we gave as much information as we could, we laid out what was going to happen. They knew what to expect. They knew who to go to if they had a question. We didn't have anyone who tried to change the plan, or it was more of, okay, do we have time now? We're going to do this if that is okay, and we were good to go. It's more just we were a family unit, big family unit traveling together, and it was, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, everybody good, when are we meeting back? And so my colleague and I, our main function was just making sure we had rendezvous points and times, we were all together, and we were ready to go for each experience we had planned.
You're wise. And in terms of a student getting sick, has anyone gotten sick yet?
We've only been on one
Okay.
Experience overseas, so we did not have anyone get sick.
Okay.
The benefit of having families go is you have mom and dad there to help take care of and help console should something happen, and also help make those decisions so they don't necessarily rest on our shoulders.
You made a good point in that setting expectations from the standpoint of traveling abroad involves a lot of ambiguity. You have to be okay with being not okay. You have to be okay with being uncomfortable. And that if that doesn't get said, because there will be a lot of differences that frustrate them, then you can lead to discrepancies in perception.
Yes. And letting the parents know that we are doing these things for the kids' benefit and for their learning also helped those situations. Because sometimes things that upset us as adults aren't so upsetting when we know our kids are getting something out of an experience, and it's their wide eyes and their oohs and their ahs and their oh my gosh that change that for an adult. Even if you're hot and tired and don't want to wait in this line and don't understand why we have to do this before we do that, the kids and their reaction, because they're so young, help that.
And that's another great thing about setting those expectations. And if you're there to remind them of those expectations, and listen, I've heard stories of groups that are almost totally parent focused, and there's and it just makes things really challenging. But when parents are selfless enough to kind of see their student and the unbelievable experience that they're getting, it's so hard to unknow what you know.
Yes.
We've all traveled around the world. We know things. They don't. They've never seen it before. To see it from someone from fresh eyes, and I tell myself that every time I go abroad, and I go abroad with groups a lot. My perception is not their perception. Don't rob them of their perception.
No, let them have it. Yes.
Let them have it, exactly.
And I think along with expectation is just keeping in mind who you're taking with you. If you have that blend of adult, more centered activities versus kids, more centered activity, and then as the coordinators, the school coordinators of the trip, we're just there to kind of help the group that maybe that experience wasn't geared so much for.
Right.
So, for example, in our winery visit, it might be making sure the kids had something to do so the parents could enjoy that.
Right.
If it was something more kid-focused that the parents maybe didn't know exactly what they needed to do, it might be telling them, look at what they're doing, let's point out like the aha moments, or it might be telling them something they could do while the kids are doing their thing.
Right.
So it's just kind of knowing our role and where we need to be in each situation as we went through the experience.
Let's look at like a macro level from the Kennan school perspective, right? You're the head of school. What does he want from this endeavor? How does he want it to tie together with middle school and upper school exactly?
Well, I think consistency is one. Making sure that we are talking and making sure that we are building a program that is relevant for each division, that is meaningful for each student who is going to be participating and family member who's going to be participating or paying for these experiences. I also think that the takeaways are important. The why are you going, and then how do you know that it was a successful event, are all things that are important to him. And then all together, does it match our mission? If it matches our mission and what we're trying to create here at the school, then that's what he's looking for.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we're coming up a little bit towards the end now, but we've had some amazing tidbits. I mean, I think things like the culture fairs are a big deal. Setting expectations, creating meaningful programs with patient and flexible providers, and make sure providers realize that independent schools are different. Every independent school is independent of the other independent school.
Yes.
And everyone has a different mission.
So true. So true.
And I mean, what else? If for our listeners, if there anything else, any other advice you can give them as they look to this road, what would it be?
I think the biggest piece of advice I can give is think about you as a traveler. What excites you? What worries you? What questions do you have? And that will help guide what you are leading. If you are leading the high schoolers by themselves, try to put yourselves in their shoes. But the same thing, they're wondering and asking the same questions, like, what words do I need to know? Do I need to get money ahead of time? What cell service do I need to use? They have all of the same questions that we have as an adult. So just thinking about what got you into this, what makes you passionate about these experiences, and use that to guide your planning.
Wonderful. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for being on with me today.
Yes, thank you.
It's always a pleasure, and being so patient with me. A couple days after your vacation, you must be like, man, does he want to talk now? It's still my summer.
Look, I'm always willing to talk about travel.
Well, I'm always willing to work with you for it. And thank you for everyone who's listening to the Trip Later podcast series. We come out with sessions once a month. We're on Apple Podcasts and Google Play. Download us for free. Listen to us on your commute. Wanted to put in one more plug for the Global Education Benchmark Group. If you are a school that is not a part of this group, it's an amazing organization that Canon is a part of, and many of your independent school peers are a part of too. It's a benchmark organization where you can learn what other schools are doing, similar to this podcast, but in the form of a wiki, and it's great resources.
Yes, you can ask all kinds of questions
and
from people who do it.
There's an amazing listserv, so surround yourself with as much global resources as you can and people who have been there. Again, this is Eli with the Trip Leader Podcast. Thank you for listening, and everyone, have an awesome day.